אני מתכבד להזמין את המרצה האחרון, חיים שקולניק. חיים הוא מנהל מחוז יהודה ביחידת קמ"ט ארכיאולוגיה, הוא משמש כנומיסמט היחידה, מתמחה בארכיאולוגיה של ראשית הנצרות ועוסק במחקר של מערת המכפלה. חיים סיים לאחרונה עבודת תזה במסגרת לימודי התואר השני באוניברסיטת בן גוריון, וחפר במספר אתרים בארץ יהודה, המרכזיים שבהם דר בעל, תל זיף וחורבת ברכות, שעליה ידבר הערב. חיים, בבקשה.
אוקיי. אני באתי להתלונן שעוד פעם שמו אותי דובר אחרון בכנס, אבל אני רואה את הקמ"ט פה, אז אני לא אתלונן. הכל בסדר. מדובר בחפירה הראשונה שלי בקמ"ט, כשסך הכל נתבקשתי לבצע ניקוי לקראת שימור במקום, ואיכשהו מצאתי את עצמי חופר שם במשך 3 שנים, עם התוצאות שמיד תראו. So the lecture was advertised to be given in English, so I'll switch to English. The site is located in the heart of the mountainous Judea, roughly halfway along the ancient and the modern highway connecting Bethlehem and Hebron, inside the kibbutz Migdaloz. It was excavated initially by the late Yoram Zafrir and Izhar Hirschfeld. They reported their most detailed preliminary report was published in 1979, the Dumbarton Oaks Papers. And their notion was that there is a settlement which they called a Byzantine village occupying that's the pointer, occupying the hill, the top of the hill. The ruins they could see there, they ascribed to the Byzantine village, while this church, which is, as you can see, it's slightly disconnected from the main ruins and located actually at the southern foothill, served as their parochial, as their community church of this presumed village. That's what the site looks like. The church, the hill, view from the hill toward the church. I have already I must say that I had an honor of excavating here on top of the hill together with Dr. Raviv here. And among other important finds from the Second Temple period, we ruled out the possibility that there was a Byzantine village on the top of the hill. It's something that we have to remember. It's an important point to which I shall be back. The ruins you can see belong mainly to the Mamluk Middle Ottoman village named Khirbet Bureykut, which was deserted somewhere during the late 18th, maybe in the beginning of the 19th century. And there is a Byzantine compound, seemingly a xenodochium and pilgrims inn, and possibly with a monastery next to it. So that's what Zafrir and Hirschfeld exposed. They exposed the beginning of the atrium. We see it's the plan is very typical. It's a very Byzantine blueprint of tripartite division of the church. You have the atrium, you have the narthex, the prayer hall. In this case, there is a crypt which was accessed by the means of 2 flights of steps, signalizing that a special status of the church, making it a pilgrim church. Out of nearly 700 churches of the period we have in the Holy Land in general, in Israel, in Greater Israel and Judea and Samaria, we have only 5 which actually have this arrangement of 2 flights of steps. So it's something special. And they exposed the mosaics, very nicely executed, really finest quality, among the finest mosaics in the region, but severely damaged, as you can see this one. And nearly intact carpet inside the crypt. We'll see them in a moment. And also they were under the impression that those projecting beyond the eastern facade of the church, they actually interpreted them as chapels, as side chapels. The mosaics, this one was exposed until recently in the Israel Museum. Recently they took it down for some reason. It cannot be seen anymore, and this is the mosaic from the crypt, which is now exposed, exhibited in the Good Samaritan Museum. You can see there. It's very luckily, unfortunately, that the mosaics were taken out because it allowed me to excavate underneath. The last important find, Tzafrir and Hirschfeld made an important observation that the crypt of this church was actually built into an earlier cave shrine. It was a little cave. See, those are the walls of the crypt. But this part is actually hewn. It's a little rock-hewn cave with a apse-like niche oriented toward the west. And there was also what they called a built tomb with collected fragmentary remnants of at least 11 individuals, which they interpreted as some local people who just desired to be buried inside this place. That's what it looked like. And that's the suggested restoration. So you see the prayer hall, the flights of steps leading into the crypt, the bema built on top of the crypt. For those of you who are interested in Byzantine architecture, very recently quite similar church was published by friend and colleague Benjamin Storchan from Ramat Beit Shemesh, the so-called Glorious Martyr Church. It's a very similar arrangement of flights of steps and crypt. His crypt is intact, completely intact, so you don't need much imagination there. And you see those side chapels. Their conclusions, the main conclusions were that the shrine starts to develop from the end of the 4th century in this cave. That toward the middle of the 6th century, the large pilgrim church with the script and all the nice mosaics was built, partly destroying this original cave shrine. And they also expressed an idea that this place, this pilgrim site, was established on a place associated with some unknown apparently Old Testamental tradition of secondary importance. Secondary importance because these days we didn't know what was so important in this site. So some unknown and lost tradition. And the last observation was that the site was deserted during the 7th century. And the activity in it was replaced by what they called Arab squatters. Arab because they left some Kufic graffitis. And that's it. So as I said, I was only asked to clean and to prepare the conservation. You see, two seasons later, 3 seasons later, so it's creeping excavation, which resulted in a complete exposure of the church and of everything which somehow abuts or associated with it in this little territory confined by the neighborhood and by the roads. Those are all the phases, of which for us of interest are only those marked by the blue color. Those are dated to the 4th through the late 5th or the 6th century. Here we see our cave. Those lines roughly mark its outline. We found out that there was another structure, a single-aisled chapel right on top of this cave. As you remember, the cave was destroyed, badly damaged by the crypt, so most of this structure was destroyed by this crypt. We found a paved path connected by a doorway with this structure above the cave, and the path was descending towards the east, toward an interesting rounded installation, which was important enough, so it was replastered and incorporated in the later 6th century structure. We also have a cistern, a large cistern, which was active already in the first stage. And we have a freestanding tower and a service wing, both serving as a possible evidence for a monastery. Those are necessary, maybe not mandatory, but definitely necessary elements of a monastery. The tower is located on the highest spot of this plot of land, and the service wing has an installation which was used for food processing, and this room was used for storage of probably of grains. It's very, smells very monasterish. To the northeast of our cave and this strange installation, there was a water source. It was a little primitive water system hewn in the rock, kind of duct, you will see in a moment, which served even before, apparently from the beginning of the new era, from the 1st century through the 6th, when it apparently dries up, and was deliberately filled with refuse, with just domestic refuse. But it definitely served as a water source, as is evident not just from its shape, but also from travertine covering nearly everything inside and around it. And also important, you see there is another structure, severely damaged by those yellow early Islamic walls, but with some elements still recognizable in it. There is an apse and another water installation you will see in detail in a moment. In the 6th century, in the middle 6th century, in the days of Justinian, we normally blame Justinian for any serious church constructions in this land. This compound was built, a large atrium, series of rooms, a narthex, prayer hall, crypt, and these two features, which I do not call them chapels anymore because they are not, they are actually towers, you will see in a moment. But even without knowing that those are towers, you see, for those of you who are interested in Byzantine architecture, these projecting features, they look very, very untypical. And indeed, we have only 2 examples in the entire land of Israel of such projecting features, not necessarily towers, but rooms. In our case, those are towers. And now, some pictures. See, not much left. There is a corner of a building, some simple mosaic floor, which originally belonged to this building above the cave, the paved path, and this is the threshold, the step and the threshold, the entrance to this building. The cistern, service wing, freestanding tower, service wing, and this is our water installation. You see, this is the opening, close up. You see it's clearly hewn, you can see the chisel tracks. Other way, and this is the rounded installation. And another view, you see 6th century, mid-6th century Justinianic masonry, the towers, and this rounded installation still preserved in the 6th century complex. There were 3 steps. They were badly damaged by the time, but there are 3 steps, so they allowed this descension and some activities inside. Okay, too bad. Early plaster inside this installation. The crypt looked toward the east. You see the window. The mosaic is in the museum at this phase. We excavate underneath and expose the mosaic, this little mosaic carpet belonging to the cave shrine in its entirety. This, you see, it's offset. It doesn't follow the axes of the building. this apsidal niche towards the west. You see what's left of the cave, close up, and you see roughly the outline of the cave. It was really small, and you see those crevices. That's what's left from this cave. When clearing between all those crevices and what's left of the cave, we found this coin. It's, as my friend Yoav already said, note it's good condition, nearly uncirculated in terms of numismats. The coin was struck by Constantine the Great in Antioch in the 330s, in nearly uncirculated condition, so probably suggesting that it was lost or deposited there shortly after it was struck. The towers. So I have to prove that those are actually towers and not projecting chapels, as has been said. Well, when you have a doorway, which is roughly 2 meters below the floors inside the prayer hall, something else, you see solid walls, no passages, no thresholds. They were completely disconnected, very massive, so they were capable of supporting many courses of masonry. And for those who would attack me for inventing towers and saying there are no towers in early Byzantine architecture in the East, so I usually show this mosaic, now exhibited in Louvre, mid-6th century from Eastern Mediterranean. You see eastern facade of a basilical church adorned with towers. So they existed. The structure to the northeast, which one I mentioned, you see very badly remodeled by later and modern activities. Originally had 2 entrances, an apse, and this stepped installation, to which we have an exact parallel in Beit Shean, which one I interpreted as a baptismal font and the entire structure as a monumental baptistry. Making this one number 3 in Israel out of roughly 700 churches. This would be the 3rd monumental baptistry. In the beginning of the 7th century, something very bad happens in the place. We see destruction, including of the place itself. We see that the integrity of the structure was it's not intact anymore. We date this termination of activity to the beginning, to the 1st quarter of the 7th century, based on the coins. Latest ones belong to Maurice and to Phocas. And then we have a very untypical for churches find, arrowheads. They normally are not found in churches, and we have more than 2. We have, I think, about 6 or 7 so far. And then we also found a mass burial in a cavity next to the church, altogether including near 20 individuals, including men, women, children, infants, with additional arrowheads together with them. And they apparently, at least some of them, were Christians, which implies a massacre and violent event. And since we are in the 7th century, we normally tend to blame the Persians for such things. Byzantine-Persian War, which resulted in a massacre and was followed by a desertion of the site. Since it's not a parochial church and there is no village on top of the hill, in the one hand, in the other hand, we have a very special church with unique features, lavishly decorated, a pilgrim destination. We have numerous indications for its being pilgrim destinations. We have a water source, and we have this strange but very important water installation the east of the church, which I interpret as a primitive baptismal installation. I have parallels. If someone interested, I can discuss it later on. So I came up with the suggestion to identify the place as the traditional site of the baptism of the Ethiopian eunuch, which is described in the New Testament in the book of Acts. Yes. So I used Madaba map to help me in this identification and also the pilgrim accounts. So I know some would say, wait, there are other places which are identified that way. It wouldn't be the only one. There are actually double and triple pilgrim places like Cana of Galilee and several numerous venerated tombs. So it's normal to have more than one identified with the same event. So the badly damaged Madaba map, which is somewhere in the 67 before, which was completed before 570, luckily preserved the relevant area of Judea, of the land of Judah. We see some well-known locations like Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Beit Zachariah. The identifications are consensual. We have the Mamre and Hebron. And then we have two places located, remember, roughly halfway between Bethlehem and Hebron Mamre. That's what it looks like. And then we have two additional sites which are of great help in my identification. You see a place well known to us, which is called Tekoa. We know where it is. It's Horvat, Tekoa, and village of Tekoa, due east of the sites we are discussing now. And another place named Safita, which I also offer an identification. Now, how the sites look on an actual map: Bethlehem, Beit Zachariah, Mamre, and then bringing you back to the baptism of Enoch and Beit Zachariah. One would say, wait, we know both sites. The first one, Beit Sur, Beit Zachariah, and place named Beit Sur is located not far from Hebron, near Halhul. Identified, excavated, Horvat to Beika, while the place of the baptism is identified in a Dirve. There is a spring and a church. So to the first objection, I will say that I identify Beit Sur in Horvat Beit Savir, which is located right next to Beit Zachariah as it appears on the Madaba map. And that Jerome himself in his Onomasticon says that at least in the 4th century there were at least two sites, two places so named. You can see he says it clearly. There is more than one Beit Sur. So this is our site, Migdal Oz, and then another two reference points. Eastmost Safita, which I identify in the Arab village, in the Palestinian village named Horvat Safa. The place has some Byzantine remains, so it can be identified as a village depicted on the Madaba map. And this is Horvat Tekoa. You see, they all aligned and along an, let's say, imaginary axis stretching from the west to the east, exactly as it appears here. You see, imaginary axis, while the other candidates are closer to Mamre and they're supposed to be somewhere here. And now the pilgrims. Theodosius, indeed, the distances he gives, he indeed speaks about the first Beit Sur, the already well-known Beit Sur, and then Dirve. But the Nosea, or Nosat, the pilgrimage from Bordeaux, obviously speaks about another place. The distances are given there. You cannot force them to fit to the previously known reality, unless you place the site of the baptism, where I suggest, next to this new second Beit Sur. And the last thing I would like to show you. While clearing the crevices of that poor cave, what remained of it, we found a lamp which was hidden, lighted lamp, deliberately hidden very deep in that crevice. Lighted, deliberately hidden, as far as a hand can reach. The lamp belongs to the type which was in use during the 2nd and the 3rd century, so it's late Roman. You cannot connect it in any way to the earliest of the Byzantine activities at the site. But one lamp, it's not enough. There's nothing criminal. It could just be there. But then, that's the place. It was there, right there. But then we found these. And while the right things, they can conventionally be called phallic objects, because they look phallic, this one is not a phallic object. This is a phallus. You can see, made of clay, They were discarded, deliberately discarded and placed in most unrespectful way under the pavements of the paths around the church. And these two led me to believe that there was a pagan cult operating at the site before the Christians came there, probably being one of the considerations that forced the Christians take over the site. And in a very broad statement, I would suggest that it was some sort of fertility cult shaped after the famous Eleusinian mysterial cult. Demeter, Persephone, usually reserved for married women, which implied the use of sources of light, lamps and torches, which would be lowered into chasms and caves and various deep places, and where they would eventually be left once Persephone is found. And another companion of those mysterial cults was the phallus. So the language was full with abundant phallic allusions and imagery. The phallus would be carried on like standards, and they also would be brought as offerings to the same caves. So that might be a nice example of this pagan Christian tradition. And that's it. I think I'm done. My conclusions. I slightly refined the dates. The beginning of the Christian cult in the first half of the 4th century, in the days of Constantine the Great. The main church built in the middle of the 6th century, probably Justinian, not a parochial church, pilgrim site, and the recently offered identification. Thank you. Sorry for the delay, but I couldn't help it.
תודה רבה לחיים. חברים, נגמר לנו הזמן. תודה רבה על הסבלנות ועל ההקשבה וההתמדה. נתראה מחר, בחמישי. כל טוב.